Hello, welcome to Just the Facts, episode 25. Very excited to talk about the following topic. We are going to talk about handling the digital showroom customer. It's a question we get asked a lot. People are struggling out there today trying to maximize their online presence and drive traffic and be successful. I couldn't think of a better person to talk about that than Steve Roessler. Steve is with DriveCentric. Welcome, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you being here. Steve comes from a very varied background. We'll get into that in just a minute. But Steve, I wanted to ask you a question right off the bat. Probably the number one question I get asked working at Carfax, we have a wide breadth of dealers, and they reach out to us sometimes because we have a listings product and so forth.
Right.
But to them, what they want to know is they've been dipping off. Their traffic's been dipping off a little bit. Their effectiveness has been dipping off a little bit. They're a little concerned about that, obviously, as they would be.
Sure, absolutely.
What would you say to someone who asked you that question? Hey, lately, what do I got to do? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Things have just been... You hear that? That's the world you're in, right?
Well, sure. I mean, right now, the customer has changed dramatically since COVID. We're right now, everybody's impatient. I think, when customers are submitting those leads or they're communicating with the store, our dealers got to be more responsive. I think that's the whole thing. We're talking about engagement. We go out there, teach and teach and teach and preach and preach and preach on the art of engagement. And when you go out there and start thinking about, if I text you, Bob, if you don't reply to me in 10 minutes, it's like you lost me.
That's true.
I mean? And if you do not respond quickly, so back in the day, there were a lot of OEMs saying, well, you get this internet lead, you could wait between 15, 30 minutes. Not anymore. The Detroit Trading Company actually has a study where it literally shows that, in the 5 minutes, you can lose about 10% closing percentage just because you're not responding fast enough. So I think depending upon how the store is staffed up, are they getting a lot of leads? Are they understaffed? Those are all the things that are going to impact what is going on that could cause that decline.
Yeah. One of the things we work on a lot, and it's a battle, right? Breaking habits, whatever's been around a long time must be the right answer kind of stuff, right? There's been a shift, though, especially with the reduction in inventory availability, the traffic's down. Everyone, we don't have to tell these guys, everyone knows. The art of finding the right buyer, reducing your lead count. Everyone wants to sell leads. But as a dealer, I can only have capacity for so many leads. And when I get to capacity, I have lessened my ability to drive sales. All of a sudden, I'm busy work. All of a sudden, I'm doing a lot of noise, right? But if you find the right buyer out there, it's easy to lose them, bringing them home, right? And I know one of the things you specialize in is... it's been referred to as liquidity, where I call it, you're talking about it as the digital showroom customer, the art of closing the deal. Everyone says, oh, they buy online. It's still my belief they do research online.
Oh, sure. That's fact.
But they still love to go to the dealer. The feel the wheel, it's a big deal. It's supposed to be fun.
Yep.
And they still love going to bricks and mortar. At the end of the day, right?
Yeah, of course.
Online's fun, but bricks and mortar is still bricks and mortar. Even when the millennial generation was thought of and not here yet, I happened to be at AutoNation at those times, and I was a national director, so they used to ask me my opinion on what are we going to do, and we were guessing. It was an educated guess. But back then, millennials said, I don't care about the showroom. It doesn't mean anything to me. But once they got money, then it meant something to them.
True.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I know we're going to go there because that's what people are asking us, and I know that's what you're really good at. Point one, step one, most important step of all the steps. What's step one to make sure that you're going to transition a customer who found your car, decided that's the car they want? What is step one to improving transition rate, bringing people home?
Well, at the end of the day, it's all about getting that customer to engage back. So when they get that lead, one of the biggest, newest KPIs that dealerships need to measure is, what is your internet engagement? Statistically, the way that dealers are communicating is usually between 30 and 35% engagement of internet leads. So let's just break that down. If I get 35% engagement, how many of those do I have to show up? 50% maybe, let's just say. Well, that's 18. But if they can bump up their engagement to 70%, which again, we see historical with the right new communication tools, us teaching them about the speed to get the customer engaged, we're seeing engagement at 70%. So all of a sudden now, you just work the numbers now at 70. Well, I'm converting at 50%. When I was at 30%, you should convert 50% at 70. Now I got 35 appointments.
Yeah.
So that's the number one, is focus on engagement as a top priority at the dealership in like under 5 minutes. I mean, it is a speed game today. And, once you get that customer, then it's all about the personal touch. We're just at that show. We're talking about getting a customer reaction. I mean, just think, is video a common practice at many dealerships? No.
Not
Why?
well. They're trying.
They're still not. I mean, that's probably less than, seriously, probably 5% are doing video. And when they are doing video, they're dabbling in video.
Right.
It's not, it's a one and done.
Right.
And video can be done as what we've proven from start to finish, even doing things like anniversary videos. So again, part of the, if there's a customer that you're talking to, may not be a customer today, but it'll be a customer for the future. And it's all about creating that brand experience at that store. And if you do that, that may be a future customer. And that is what's called upstream marketing. And so the way you engage these customers is going to leave a lasting impression. And I call it a subliminal message. If you create that subliminal message, which, like, hey, if I called you up, Bob, and said, man, I'm having a plumbing problem. You know a good plumber? You're going to say, yeah, man, call this guy. That's upstream marketing.
Right.
And so that's how you got to believe at a dealership level that conversation happens. And if it's a negative experience, you're not thought of. You're probably being talked about even worse. So, I mean, I always say that if we're going to because I tell dealerships, don't get overwhelmed. Focus on increasing your engagement with the right forms of communication, which in today, it's going to be texting and video. You can go out there and say, make 100 phone calls, 50 emails a day, but I guarantee you don't do that with your friends and family. And so, hey, I had a Super Bowl party. I sent an e-blast. I was a party of one. All right. So we just pretend the customer's a friend.
Right.
If we're going to email our friends and family, okay, then you're going to email customers. But we text our friends and family. So that must make the customer the enemy, I always joke. So there you go.
One of the things you had told me earlier today, which I was very intrigued with when I listened to you explain it, was you had talked about touching on words the customer was using and make that the discussion. Can you go there a little bit? Because I thought that was very intriguing.
Yeah, it's just mirroring your customer. It's a sales tactic. So when a customer is saying something like, for example, like we brought up the example today of non-smoking car. I don't want to be in a car that smoked, or a customer that had that smoked in their car. So I would react saying, "Oh man, I hate smokers," and I would just bond with the customer because I feel the same thing, because I don't like smokers, but, or being in a car that smokes. So therefore you're mirroring, and you all of a sudden found some synergies with the customer. So the more that it's a listening skill, and you can just say those words and you focus on those words, that customer will know in their mind that you are in fact listening to something that's key. So it's just a sales tactic.
So are you saying you're actually selling without saying anything?
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm selling because I'm listening on the keywords that you're saying. So,
well, at the end of the day, they buy it from you first.
Correct. That's never going to change.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I have a very interesting question I want to ask you. And this is a Cox Automotive study, by the way. I'll put it where it belongs. And that's Cox Automotive did the study. Now, Cox Automotive, as everyone knows, has a lot of online tools. They, major amount of their business is designed for online tools. Mm-hmm. The Cox Automotive study said that the dealer's first point of physical contact with the dealer, or excuse me, contact with the consumer, was actually at the front door 54% of the time. So they did a lot of their research online, but they didn't necessarily call, text, or communicate that way. They showed up, which means you did the right job with your listing in your car and all that stuff, right?
Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So when that happens, right? When that happens, there's some similarities to if you were on the phone, right? The only reason you're on the phone is to try and get them to the dealership, right? The only reason you're responding to an email is to get them to your dealership. So now they're there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same personality traits, the listening things. So can you transition a little bit to that? Because if we get the dealers to do the right job with their listings, and truly they have 27 photos and told the customer everything they want to know, and there's really so many, other than do you still have it, sometimes there isn't a reason to have to contact the dealer. But the transition is still the same. So can you go down that road a little bit for me?
Yeah, I think I understand the question is how am I going to treat the customer once they come in the store just to make sure they have a great buying experience? Well, I think we always have to realize at the dealership that, as humans, and we always forget about this, but the majority of the way we communicate is body language, 55%, and then 38% tonality.
Right.
So 7% is words. So, but the words you use are always critical. So it is important, like when salespeople greet that customer coming in the store, obviously they got a smile on their face is key. Their tone is high. It doesn't matter when you're on the phone. If somebody called me up and Bob, I know it's Bob. Hey, Bob, what's going on? You could be in the world's worst mood.
Right.
But, or if you come walking in the store, I have no idea what your day has been like. But I have the opportunity potentially to change that customer's day.
Right.
By
Life, quite frankly.
Well, yeah. And sometimes it doesn't go that way. But the idea is your first impression is always going to be key. It's no difference. Like I think if we even just think about all the dealers that are going out there interviewing. We all have the first impression, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's a first impression rose on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, right? So that's what you have to think about. Your first impression in the first probably 3 to 5 minutes, you are being sized up by that customer. And that's the most important part. So if we just go out there and do a really good job meeting and greeting the customer, I would say get to know the customer, understand who they are. One of the things I always teach in sales is, what do you know about the customer? And if you can focus on one thing, 99% of the time, you made a customer a friend for hopefully life to your dealership.
100%.
So I think that's what we always got to think about is customers know what they're going to buy. And we shouldn't go out there and sell. I think we are in a generation, I think we still want to feel like we're selling, but we're not selling, we're catering. And there's a difference. It's, if a customer says, hey, how many miles it goes to the gallon? I don't know, let's look at the window, and you can figure that out. So customer research is the car.
To me, I think the first pitfall that salespeople or dealers, we're all salespeople, forget is that it's much easier to let somebody buy something from you than to try and sell them something.
Mm-hmm.
In today's world, consumers literally, now let's go with the stats, right? NADA stats says 95% of all consumers are online before they visit the dealer. Right? Mm-hmm. NADA stats says that on average it's about 14 hours, 13 to 15, depending who you talk to, time doing research, right? Mm-hmm. Well, nothing that's fun takes 14 hours, okay? So by the time you do meet them, whether it's a phone, a chat, or at the door, they're 90% ready to buy a car.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
totally.
You've showed them everything they needed. You told them everything they needed. You got a price reasonable, or you wouldn't be talking to them. All of that's already lined up. They're 90% ready to buy. At least 90% of our customers are, right? Yet then, national closing average still hovers around that 35%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from 90 to 35 is a big number that we're missing. Now, we can take 10% for bad credit. Love to sell you. You'd love to buy, can't do it.
Right.
We can take 10% for upside down. Maybe not lately, but love to sell you. You owe too much. Can't make it happen. And 10%'s a bad damn day. You're a salesman. You have bad days. You're not a good fit for that customer. Whatever. You're a salesman. You learn you have. But that's 30%. That's all the excuses.
Yep.
So we're from 90 to 60, but we're closing at 35 with customers that are 90% ready to buy. Where do we go left? What happened?
That's a great question. Well, I think part of it if they are visiting the store, I think, again, part of the customer experience, they don't want to ever feel like, I guess in my phrase is we're not giving the customer enough credit with the information that's on the website.
That's exactly correct.
And I think, and I'll give you an analogy on this, but because I came from the medical industry, so if you had a
You
kid,
came from a lot of industries.
I did.
You had medical, and where were you before medical?
Engineering.
And somehow you ended up at auto.
Exactly. I'm taking everything I've learned and to apply it into automotive. It's kind of interesting. But think about this. This was 10 years ago when obviously people had groups and stuff. But if you have a kid with type 2 diabetes, you would go join a forum on nothing but type 2 diabetes. I mean, just think about that 10 years ago. So what happens is when you go to the doctor, you're telling the doctor what you want to prescribe, what therapy, because you're in a forum. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm talking to other parents that had the same concern as me, and I'm listening to what they're doing. So I'm going to tell my doctor, this is what I think is best for my kid. You become the doctor. So just imagine it. That's why the medical industry is all screwed up because of what technology is. But now just take that same thought process into the car industry. If I'm looking at an F-150, I could go out there and find an F-150 group. And I can ask, what do you like about the F-150? What should I be looking for? What questions should I ask the dealership? I mean, I could be the F-150 expert before my sales guy is. So, I mean,
sometimes it is the case.
It is the case. But I mean, but if I'm into a car, I'm going to research that car and know the insides and outs. So I think as a salesperson, with the technology that's out there, you almost have to just assume that the customer knows more about the car than you do potentially.
And all you gotta do is ask them.
Just ask. It's all, what I call it is understanding what is the customer's pathway in buying the car. So if they come in, I would want to say, hey, Bob, just curious, what on, with everything online, have you researched the car? What pathways do you want to go through and buy the car? Are you just here to test drive it? What are you looking to do? Do you want to do it at home?
Yeah.
Do you just want to test drive today? What do you want to do? Give the customer options. And that's why I say is, it's an opportunity right now. This is a great opportunity because the customer is not in control of the price. The customer is in control of the buying experience. And I don't think the dealerships are ready to relinquish that control.
Yeah.
But that's the opportunity. Hey, how do you want to buy the car?
Yeah.
If you just want to test drive, you want to buy it all remotely, man, we could do that.
What do you want me to do next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, we're still stuck in doing it the traditional way. But I think right now, this is a great time to, talk to the customer and understand different pathways that are out there and maybe offer that. You don't know until you try it.
One of my very first dealers that I worked for, the owner told me once, he said, you know what? A sale takes place every time, right? Mm-hmm. Either you sell them or they convince you they're not buying, but either way, a sale took place, right?
Yep.
And so it's so much easier today for that elusive rapport just by asking them.
Right.
Tell me what to do next, and just do it.
Right.
Get out of their way.
But the data is speaking, right? I mean, look, Carvana found, and all these other guys, they found a hole in the system, right? And they exploit it.
Sure.
Now, dealers could have been doing this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Why? It's almost like another Kodak moment, when they lost everything to Pinterest and stuff like that. Yeah. There's an opportunity. And all of a sudden, think of all the units that are being sold used because we weren't proactive to take our dealership into a new realm. And so if a dealership says, hey, we have the same Carvana experience, but we can go out there and you could test drive.
Yeah.
Have you ever returned a Carvana car? I would like to see that shipping box. You know what I mean? So
we could talk about this for hours. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep this short and sweet like we do on these type of calls. But I want to give you a couple minutes. Tell them about yourself. Tell them what you do. It's very interesting to me. I'm sure there's people out there that could use your help.
Yeah, no. Well, the company I work for is DriveCentric. We're a CRM. It's a more modern CRM. And, with the arts of all the forms of engagement, a lot of CRMs are data management tools. That's, I think, the industry kind of knows.
Now, you humbly say you work for them.
Well, I'm one of the owners.
You're one of them.
I know. Well, yeah. I mean, but anyway, not too. It's cool. It's cool being an owner finally after all the different startups.
Yeah.
But we pride ourselves in putting engagement first. And data management is just secondary. It's like self-explanatory. Well, we're getting a CRM. But you need all the tools to engage these customers and understand and communicate back on the channel that customer prefers to be communicated. So we're getting a lot of dealerships to get rid of the 100 phone calls, 50 emails a day. Yeah. And I'm sorry, if you think that works, may the odds ever be in your favor. But that's the facts. But yeah, it's just texting's the number one form of communication. It's never going to change. Video is coming stronger than ever. And if we're not using those two forms of communication, you're missing out on humanizing the car buying experience.
Interesting.
So yeah, we take a lot of pride in really changing the thought process, going from one CRM to like an engagement strategy platform. And again, our stores are growing at 38%. So it's a great opportunity. So always love to help on changing the culture of a store.
Well, I don't know if you found enjoying that, but I certainly did. So I'm sure you did too. So we will catch you next time on Just the Facts.